Hello, girls. Today we're starting a new section. It's 2-7, Solving Equations with Rational Numbers, and it's on page 94, so please follow along with your book and take notes in your math journal while I go over all of these things. Now, this is very much the same as solving regular equations with whole numbers, which we did before Christmas, maybe around Thanksgiving time. And what we need to remember when we're solving equations is the first thing you do is you look at what is happening with the variable and you do the opposite. So I see that 0.25 is being added to x, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtract it from both sides. Because remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And so I'm going to use my calculator. You can too. These two are going to cancel out. And I'm just left with x, which is what I wanted. And then I'm going to do negative. Hold on, I forgot my minus sign right there. Sorry. I'm going to do negative 4.12 minus 0.25. And I got the wrong number, so I'm going to do it again. I got negative 4.37. And that's my answer. So remember, again, I'm going to look at what's happening to the variable, and I'm going to do the opposite. Make sure you pause in between problems to copy these down so that you can understand it and not go too fast, okay? Pause the video whenever you need. So I see again that I have a fraction being subtracted from my variable this time, minus 3/4. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add 3/4. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So on this side, they're going to cancel each other out. And I'm just left with a. But on this side, now I have two fractions that I need to add or subtract together, but they don't have the same denominator. So the first thing I'm going to do is get them to have the same denominator. So I'm going to write these next to each other because it's easier for me to work with them when they're next to each other. So the least common denominator with 3/8 and 3/4 is going to be 8. So that means I have to leave this fraction the same because it already has an 8 on the bottom, so I'm just going to bring it down. But then this one, I have to figure out how to get an 8 on the bottom. So I know if I multiply by 2, I can get an 8 on the bottom. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So now I'm going to bring that plus sign down and bring down my new fraction that I just made. Now I can put these numbers together. I have a negative 3/8 and a positive 6/8. Remember, you add or subtract the top numbers, the bottom number stays the same. So negative 3 plus 6 is just going to equal 3. Keep the 8 on the bottom, and then I'm going to write that a equals again. Now that one had quite a few more steps. So take your time, copy it down, and then move on to the next problem. All right, for number 5, I have a fraction again, but remember, first I have to see what operation is happening with the variable. When two things are written next to each other, it means multiply. So I have multiplication happening, and I have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. But when we divide by fractions, remember our keep, change, flip? I have to flip the fraction. Oh, I got a highlighter, hold on. I have to flip the fraction and multiply by what I flipped. So I'm going to use a dot to show multiplication, and I'm multiplying by the flip of the fraction. And so whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to multiply this side by 6 over 5 also. So what happens is these fractions end up canceling each other out, and I'm just left with the variable d, which is what I wanted. And now I'm going to multiply this side together and see what I get. So remember that 45 has an imaginary 1 sitting under it. So I'm going to do 6 times negative 45, which is 270, negative 270. And then I'm going to do 5 times 1, which is just 5. Now, since there's such a large number on top, I'm going to see if I can divide 270 by 5. Because remember, fraction means divide. So let's see if we can divide it out and make it an easier number. Negative 270 divided by 5 equals negative 54. And bring your variable down one more time for the final answer. All right, that's the first 3 problems. Copy these down, and then I'll be back with a couple more. Okay, I'm back with the last 3 problems for this lesson today. And I know this is a lot of information, so don't panic, because we're going to keep working on this for several days, and the more practice you have at it, the better you're going to get at it. So let's do these last 3, and then I'll help you more when I get back. So I'm looking at the variable and seeing what operation is happening with the variable. When 2 numbers are written next to each other, it means multiply. So I have to do the opposite. That means I'm going to divide by whatever is next to the variable. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And these are going to cancel out, and I'm just left with W. And then I'm just going to divide negative 26.5 divided by negative 5.3. Now I know 2 negatives are going to equal a positive, so I'm just going to put 26.5 divided by 5.3 in my calculator. Hey, it comes out to an even 5. Okay, positive 5, that's it. Next, let's do more fractions. Okay, but it's multiplying and dividing them, so that's a little bit easier than adding and subtracting. So on this one, I am looking at the variable and seeing what is happening with the variable. Multiplication is happening with the variable, so I have to do the opposite. Remember, when we're dividing fractions, we have to flip it and multiply. So I'm going to multiply by the flip. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other. And these are going to cancel out. I'm just left with Z. And then I'm just going to multiply on this side. So 2 times 8 is 16. And 9 times 5 is 45. And I can leave it right there. 16 over 45 is my answer. Okay? All right. Last one. So the first thing I noticed with this one is that I have 2 negatives right next to each other. So the first thing I have to do is take care of those 2 negatives. So I'm actually going to rewrite this equation, because when 2 negatives are next to each other, they do what? They turn positive. So I'm going to rewrite it so it's not so crazy. So those 2 negatives became a positive. And now I'm going to look at what's happening to the variable. So what's happening to the variable? Addition. I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtraction. And these are going to cancel out. I'm just left with P equals. And let's subtract and see what 3.2 minus 0.03 equals. And it equals 3.17. And that's it. All right, email me if you have questions or if you get stuck. Ask Miss Colburn for help, and then I will be back tomorrow and I can help you with more of these tomorrow. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.